My name is Barnaby Brown. It's the 24th of July 2018 and I'm in the Greek city of Megara, which is on the south coast of Attica. And I am holding an absolutely beautiful reproduction of an aulos from the early 3rd century BC. And it's one of 2 professional auloi that have been found in the cemeteries of this town. Not in rich graves, but in ordinary professional people's graves just outside the city. The first one was found in 1980 and the second one in 2005. And these excavations were rescue excavations, building works. So the circumstances weren't ideal, particularly not for the second one. This is a reproduction of the one found in 2005, and it was almost impossible to get into the grave because the sarcophagus was actually half underneath an existing building. So this has been made by Chrestos Terzēs, and it's an absolutely glorious instrument to play. I am delighted and very proud to be owner of this reproduction, but I must issue a warning, a health warning. This requires big hands. Now the extraordinary thing is that the earlier aulos, or should I say the earlier find, because they could both be actually made by the same aulos maker. The graves are dated from between the late 4th, early 3rd century BC. But the first one that was found was in the grave of a young woman, probably a professional aulos player, trained in an aulos school to play in funeral processions, at symposia, and the aulos was between her legs, together with various other grave goods, and she was between 20 and 25 years old. The second one, which is very similar, it also has all these keys, but it doesn't have the syrinx, the keys for the syrinx holes, which the female aulos player had on her instrument. The second find was in the grave of a man aged between 50 and 55. Now, let's hear what it does. I'm taking off these reed caps and I'm going to give them a good wetting because it's quite dry here. And I haven't gone to aulos school as a child, so my tendons haven't been prepared. So I need to take great care in getting, it's a huge stretch. And the thought that this was a lady's instrument, it really was. I have found that the fingers do stretch. You just need to be very careful and not take it too quickly. I found the best thing is to, 5 minutes, I use it as a screen break. So I set my timer or a meditation bell to go dong, and that reminds me to take my eyes off the screen, pick up the aulos and do a little bit of finger stretching, and that's what it requires. So let's just do that. I'll be sensible now. Warming up a little. For fear of dropping it on this stone pavement, I'm going to hold it there. So it gives me an octave, and that hand is now covering the holes. Let's see if I can cover the holes on this hand too. I'm going to hold it above the leaves here, so there's less problem if I drop it. got a lot more practice to do on this instrument before I can play it. The reeds are closed. They need to absorb a bit more moisture so that they open out and they don't stop on me. This low one in particular just needs to absorb more moisture so that the reed, rather than being tightly closed, the mouth starts to open and then it vibrates better. But of course, if it opens out too much, it becomes too hard. So it needs to be just right. Now, I'm going to try, rather than, well, I'll be brave. I'll try a little bit more two pipes together. Okay. Now, I've had this instrument, well, let's take it in terms of hours of practice. I've probably done about, maybe about 8 hours of practice, all told, spread out across a 6-week period, being extremely careful not to do too much at a time, because otherwise I could seriously damage my hands, and I just don't want to do that. So, this is very, very tentative, early stages. Let's see what I can do. That's where I really don't want to drop this instrument, okay? I'm wanting to open the thumb hole. I would practice over a sofa. I'm too scared to use this thumb here above a stone street. So I will avoid using that thumb, but it's terribly important to train all our fingers. I'm quite sure that at aulos school in the 4th century BC, they spent a lot of time getting those thumbs to be really nimble. Oh, I should demonstrate the keys. It's so exciting to have an instrument with keys. So I've set that up there to give me, I'm not going to even try to begin to use ancient terminology because I'm not confident. We don't yet really know where we are. There are so many different ways of interpreting the evidence. But let's just open the bottom. I had all 3 keys closed there on the lower pipe, and basically the difference between them is a tone in terms of the top hand, where the thumb is, and they differ. There's a very significant difference between the Megara and the earlier classical era instruments, which are more what I would describe as an equidistant 7-tone hole boring. Here we have a semitone. Okay, so there's clearly a change in the intonation preference, or what the musicians are wanting to do on an aulos, and it's a very significant change. So because it makes it harder to finger this one because the thumb hole is higher. On this instrument, the thumb hole is closer, so there's a larger interval there, which makes it a little bit easier to hold. I have to do, it's considerably more of a strain. Although this is the higher pipe, it actually isn't so ergonomic on the hand. So let's see what opening one of these holes will do. What I might just do is just one at a time. But of course it dries up ever so quickly. Yes, and we've got to learn, I've got to maybe add some oil to make these keys work really beautifully. Let's just open them up. I'm going to open them up so that we don't have so now the lowest open hole is this one here. So it's as if this whole section there was sawn off. So that gives us a third, and I'll do the same on this pipe, opening the 3 lower holes, and that also gives us a third. Now on the earlier auloi, I would have expected a tone. Okay, so this is different. It's giving me a third when everything's open below. Over the next few years we'll come up with a good explanation for that, but I don't have one right now. One major third. Now, I have not really begun to figure out what this instrument does. There is a huge journey out ahead. There are many aspects to that journey. One is being a competent player. So just the reason I haven't experimented with those keys is because I want my fingers to really feel comfortable, and they're not there yet. Many, many more hours away. And the other thing that is going to be interesting to understand this instrument better is the other one. This is the 55-year-old man's instrument. I'm interested in that 25-year-old lady's instrument, and particularly because it has these 2 extra keys, one on each pipe, to open the syrinx hole. And they appear to be made by the same maker, or could be, very similar. So using this one, we can, or the experience gained by reproducing and playing this one, we can maybe interpret put together, figure out how to get the keys back onto the earlier find. That's going to take a lot of work, and I'm tremendously grateful to Chrestos for bringing me here today and for the work that he is undertaking, having meticulously measured all these fragments. But it's work in progress, so watch this space. Thank you for watching.